Now, I want to come full circle. Who was Major Deegan? And does he deserve to have his name cursed by you so often?
You know, I sort of have a soft spot for Major Deegan. He actually was a major in the Army during World War I. He was officially part of the American Expeditionary Force. And I say officially in the sense that he never was part of any expeditions. He stayed here in New York. He worked as part of the Army Corps of Engineers, actually under the supervision of General George Washington Goethals, who the Goethals Bridge is named after. And in that capacity, he designed fortifications around New York in case the Germans attacked, which obviously they didn't do, though there were some sightings of submarines and stuff. And after the war, he did a couple of things. He was a trained architect, so he actually was quite qualified to do that work. But he wound up being the tenement commissioner here in New York City. And this was the 1930s. There was massive movement of people around the globe, people flooding into New York. The population of New York was doubling every decade. And the housing stock was completely inadequate. It was dangerous. It was fire-ridden. And the New York legislature passed what became known as the tenement codes, which were laws that had basic minimum standards for housing. Things like there has to be a staircase. You can't just have a ladder between floors. There has to be 2 means of egress for a room. So every bedroom has to have a window that actually faces the outside so somebody could get out in an emergency, as well as a door. There have to be locks on doors. There have to be lights in hallways. The things that we consider today to be the absolute minimums of habitable domiciles will come to us from the tenement code. And as tenement commissioner, it was Major Deegan's job to enforce those tenement codes. And he took it pretty seriously. He was best buddies with New York's very corrupt mayor, Jimmy Walker at the time, but he seemed to take his job seriously, and he sent out inspectors and he was enforcing the law, and he made a point of enforcing the law for Black residents as well as white residents. And he was very clear about that. He helped found the Foreign Legion, one of the other important things that he did, and was a big advocate for veterans returning and for better health care for veterans, something that we're still struggling with today. My favorite thing about him was that he declared war on pigeons. He was convinced that pigeons spread polio, which they don't. But he also knew that pigeon coops on rooftops were a fire hazard, which they were. So he banned pigeon coops on rooftops. And there were a lot of pigeon fanciers in New York at the time. There were thousands of people who kept pigeons. And
not anymore.
No, there's still some, but they're not like there were. And they were outraged. And some of them were like, we're going to renounce our American citizenships if you allow this outrage to move forward. I don't think any of them actually renounced their American citizenship. They petitioned him. They pleaded with him saying, but we need these pigeons for war readiness. You're a major. And he was like, you know what? This is the 20th century. We don't actually do that anymore. He did, however, generously say that pigeons could stay in the parks.
So he does not deserve all the epithets you throw his way. That's what I'm hearing.
Yeah, he was very much one of the bureaucrats with roads. I mean, if I weren't so interested in meeting Gertrude Whitney, I might pick him just because I think he was really interesting. He had this very fancy Packard car that he had detailed and customized, and he would drive around the city in his Packard. Everybody knew it was his car. And in fact, it was stolen one time, and it was recovered just because it was parked on the side of the street by whoever stole it. And they're like, oh yeah, that's Deegan's car. And they got it back to him because there was only one.